what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and sorry that I'm sitting on the floor. If you guys watched my December 2017 wrap-up, you will know that as I was recording, my camera decided it wanted to almost die, and my charger couldn't connect to it from my tripod, so I had to set it down lower so that I could get it to charge. But today I'm going over my TBR for January 2018, as well as going into my TBR that I will be using for the biannual Bibliothon, which is taking place from January 20th to January 26th. You guys can find all the information for the biannual Bibliothon down in the description. I will leave both the reading challenges video and the video challenges video if you decide to partake in it. I am personally very excited for it because this will be the first time I will be participating in the biannual Bibliothon, and I have so many different videos planned for that week. Basically, between the 20th and the 26th, the only videos I will really be coming out with are the video challenges for the biannual Bibliothon, so be on the lookout for those because I got some really cool skits in mind that I'm really excited to delve into that I will be recording over the next several weeks. I do have some books that I am either currently reading or have already finished in January, so I will let you guys know those ones, and then I will go into the books that I hope to get to before the biannual Bibliothon, the books for the biannual Bibliothon itself, and the books that I hope to get done with before the end of January after the biannual Bibliothon. Basically, like the last 5 days of January, what books I hope to get through. It's again a very ambitious TBR. We'll see what kind of happens because I don't know how busy I'm going to be with this semester as of yet, as it's the first month. So we'll kind of see how this goes. I don't guarantee that I will get through all of the books that I want to, but we will definitely see how it pans out. So by now you guys have already seen the review for this book, but it was Allegiant by Veronica Roth, the final book in the Divergent series. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars, and you guys may have seen the review for it already. I finished it on the 1st of the month, actually, because I had started it a couple of days before the end of December, but because I finished it in January, I considered it to be a part of my January TBR, and I really loved it. I absolutely liked the ending a lot, even though I know why a lot of people didn't like it. Next, the book that I am currently reading is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. I am over halfway through it right now. I am actually on page 399 out of like 600 and some pages, I want to say. 652. So I'm over halfway done with it, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's definitely a lot better, I think, than The Order of the Phoenix was. If you guys watch my wrap-up and my review for that book, this one's definitely a lot faster paced, and I like that because Order of the Phoenix, I had such a hard time getting really gripped into the story. And I started this basically last night and read some more of it today. I basically read like 100 pages today already, and I'm really getting into it. Like, I know what's going to happen though at the end because I know how this story goes, but I'm still very excited to see how the rest of the story goes because it's been a long time since I have read The Half-Blood Prince, and then I will be getting to Deathly Hallows later and actually be able to finish that one as I never had finished that one before. So now we're actually going to move on to my shelf up here, which has all my books that I'm currently deciding to read over the next several weeks, and we're going to start on this side over by my colorful little pineapple. There are a lot of physical books that I'm going to be reading over the course of the month, but I also do have some books that are on my Kindle. So the first book that I hope to read before the biannual Bibliothon is 4 by Veronica Roth. This is essentially 2 years before Beatrice Pryor picks her faction that she is going to live in her choosing ceremony. This is following 4's journey after he decides to join the Dauntless faction and kind of his journey in as becoming an initiate and things of that nature. I'm very excited to read it because in Allegiant, we learned a lot of 4's perspective in that book, which we had not seen in Divergent or Insurgent, and so I'm really excited to read in his voice again because that was one of the things I loved the most about Allegiant, and I really like him as a character. I think that he's definitely got a lot riding on his shoulders that I wish I could take off of him, but I'd like to see how he kind of talks about living with his dad just before he chooses Dauntless and how his dad reacts to it. So I'm just really excited. The next book on my TBR is a book on my Kindle that I got from Off Tones Publishing for free as they were giving it away for free at the time that I had received it, and that is Justice Buried by Hilary Thompson. I talked about this, I think, in my December TBR, I think, but it's supposed to be a cool, like, sci-fi-y kind of story dealing with the Zodiacs. I don't really know much about it, but I am excited to read it because I've heard a lot of cool things about it. It is the first book in the Starbright series, and definitely not my particular area of interest, but I'm trying to get into different genres more often because I feel like I'm a little lacking in the science fiction side, so hopefully this will, inspire me to look more into it. The next book that I want to read is Perfect by Ellen Hopkins. This is actually supposed to be a continuation of the book Impulse by Ellen Hopkins, which I read not this past summer, but the summer before that. And that one dealt with 3 teenagers who were all put into a mental asylum of some sort, basically like a rehab center for, I think, suicidal people. And this story follows the sister of one of the characters that was in that novel and kind of her grieving process after losing her brother. And so that's all I really know of it, but I'm excited to see how this kind of goes because I didn't know this was supposed to be a continuation of that story until just recently. So I'm very excited to see how this one goes, and I love Ellen Hopkins' writing in general, so I know I'm going to love it anyway. Next, I am going to start doing my reread of the Beautiful Creatures series by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll, starting with the first book in the series, Beautiful Creatures. Now, I talked about this series quite a few times on my channel. This is a series that I fell in love with in high school, and I absolutely loved it, but it's been a long time since I've actually picked up the books, and so I do want to pick it up again and reread it, along with actually reading some of the novellas and spin-off novels that have come off of the series, as I did not know of them until after I had finished the main 4 books in the series. So I'm very excited because now I'm going to get a better, well-rounded idea of what these books mean to me, and I'm going to be able to read all of the other books in the series that I had not read before, and therefore getting some new perspectives on things and learning about different characters that those books talk about. The next book I'm going to start is an audiobook, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I also want to get more into some classic novels because it's one of those areas I'm not super familiar with. I've read a couple of Anne Bronte's books, and I've read some of Charlotte Bronte's work as well, but I've never read anything by Emily, so I'm very excited to see how Wuthering Heights is. I've heard a lot of good things about it. It was one of those books, though, that I had heard about in high school and was given the option to read, but instead I decided to read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen for the first time, so I'm excited to see how Wuthering Heights is and kind of see if I regret maybe not picking it up earlier. The next book that I will be reading is another off-tomes book, and this one is called The Whispers of the Fallen by J.D. Netto. This one, from what I've heard, is supposed to be reminiscent of Lord of the Rings, but for young adult readers, and as you guys know, I am a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. It is one of my favorite trilogies and prequels of all time with The Hobbit, and so I'm really excited to read this if it's supposed to be something similar to it, so y'all know I'm going to be hyped for it. After that, I will be reading the second book in the City of Bones series, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I read City of Bones almost 2 years ago, I think, and I really did enjoy it. I definitely think that it was a little bit more mediocre than I had expected at first, but I decided I wanted to continue with it. I've heard so much good things about how the Shadowhunters Chronicles and all that stuff have progressed and how they've gotten better and better with each book, so I want to see that for myself, and so I'm excited to get back into the City of Bones series first and finally read City of Ashes. Then I will be jumping into the second book in the Beautiful Creature series, Beautiful Darkness, which deals more with Ethan and Lena's relationship, the main characters, after Lena essentially witnesses something happen to one of her family members that puts her in a very dark, depressive state, and Ethan tries to kind of help her with it. Next is the second book in the Match series by Ali Khandi. This is Crossed, and I read Matched again about 2 years ago. It's been a little while, but I remember really enjoying it to the point where I really wanted to continue the trilogy, so I found Crossed, and I'm very excited to start it because I really liked the way that the dystopian society was built in this series, and it definitely had a lot of tension building up with it, with the main character and her 2 love interests, so I'm excited to see how this one goes. Following Crossed, I'm going to delve into the first novella that is built off of the Beautiful Creatures series, which is called Dream Dark. Now, this is supposed to follow the side characters who are Ethan's best friend Link and Lena's cousin Ridley, as they have a bit of a romance going on in the series. This is supposed to kind of deal with some things that happen after Beautiful Darkness and kind of their relationship and kind of how that's supposed to blossom or not blossom. I haven't read this yet, but I'm very excited to because it's one of the novellas that I had heard that had spun off the series after I finished it that I was like, I need to get my hands on. I forgot to mention that with Dream Dark, I am starting my next 24-hour readathon, which will be on January 12th, and I'm very excited to do it again because it'll be my first Friday after the semester starts, so I know I will have time to do it, and I'm hoping to get through 3 books, Dream Dark and London Bridges by James Patterson, which is the 10th book in the Alex Cross series, and I'm just dying to get back into this series because I miss Alex so much. He's one of my favorite characters ever, and this is one of my favorite mystery series ever. It's just so freaking good, and and with every book that comes out, it just gets better and better and better, and I can't wait to see what kind of goes on with Alex and this one, because it's been quite a while since I've read the other books. I think it's been about a year since I picked up Alex Cross now, and I definitely need to get back into it. And then to finally hopefully wrap up the 24-hour readathon, if it goes well, is to complete the third book in the Beautiful Creature series, Beautiful Chaos, which will round out all of the books that I am hoping to read before the biannual Bibliothon. And so this one deals kind of with after the events of Beautiful Darkness. There's something much more dire that happens that requires Ethan and Lena's efforts to try to stop, and the ending of this book, I remember, left me so heartbroken, and it was just the way that things had happened, and it kind of spills over into the final book in the quartet that basically really tests the limits of the relationship between Ethan and Lena. So then I'm basically from there going to take a week off of reading, because after having read all of those books, I would like to take a little bit of a break before the biannual Bibliothon on January 20th, because I want to give myself enough time to catch up and basically be able to focus a little bit more on my schoolwork before jumping into the biannual Bibliothon. Now, every biannual Bibliothon, there is a group book that is one of the reading challenges that you have to meet in that time, and the group book that we are working with this time is Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kristen Miller, which I'm very excited for, because Jason Segel is a very good actor. I really like a lot of his work with How I Met Your Mother and The Muppets and stuff like that, and I was not aware that he actually wrote a book. And from what I know of this one, it focuses kind of like a similar thing to Ready Player One, where it's focusing on video games, and everyone's kind of obsessed with this game called Otherworld, and something kind of happens to where it kind of blows up in everyone's face. That's pretty much all I know about it. I will also be starting my next audiobook, which will be The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which counts for the challenge of a book mentioned somewhere else. And basically this meant that you can pick a book that was mentioned in a TV show, in a movie, or something like that. And obviously, if you've watched the movie Easy A, that is a huge mention right there for The Scarlet Letter. And I was always really interested in the book because of that. Next, to finally complete my Harry Potter reread, I will be finally reading and finishing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows to meet the challenge of a sequel. The next book I will be reading is going to be called Fragile Like Us by Sarah Bernard. This is going to meet the challenge of a book I've never heard of before, because before picking this book up, I had not really heard of it. I didn't know anything about it, honestly, and so I was like, okay, this is a book I hadn't heard of on BookTube or anywhere, so I figured this would count because I've never heard anyone talk about this, I don't think, so I'm pretty excited. Next is going to be The Hate List by Jennifer Brown. This is going to meet the challenge for a book about mental illness, because unfortunately this one's a much more heavy story, essentially about a girl who finds out her boyfriend has opened fire on their high school, and nobody really seems to know why, especially her. But there's talk of the fact that he could have some kind of mental illness that has essentially caused him to snap and therefore start to shoot his entire school and starting to attack students. And so I really thought that this would be a good book to read, as it may give me a little bit more insight into how people who attack schools like this and cause mass shootings, what exactly goes through their head, if that delves into it at all. But I know that this book's supposed to be really, really heavy, and I'm a little scared to read it because of that. The next book I'm going to do is going to be a reread of Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. Now, I did read this at the beginning of 2017, and I really did enjoy it, but this is going to work for the challenge of book under 200 pages, because this novel is actually more of a novella. It's under 200 pages, and I really did enjoy it when I first read it. The next book that I'm going to read is Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, the second book in the Hunger Games series. I am finally going to continue with the Hunger Games series. I'm so excited because I loved the Hunger Games so much. This is going to work for the challenge of a book published before 2017. This book came out in 2009. So those are all the books that I am currently going to read for the biannual Bibliothon. There are 7 in total to match every day of the week that is in the biannual Bibliothon, and I will be posting reviews for the books that I will be reading during that after the biannual Bibliothon. And then I do have some books that I would like to round out the month, but I don't know if I'm going to get to them because it depends on how well I do with my reading prior to the biannual Bibliothon. But if by some mystical, magical reason I end up reading all of the books I had planned before the Bibliothon, these are the books that I plan on reading afterward. The first one is called Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I don't know much about this one except when it came out about maybe May of 2017, it was a really big hit. I've never really read anything by Neil Gaiman except for listening to the audiobook of Coraline, but that was a very old book of his, so I'm wondering if maybe this is different in his writing style. but what I'm basically getting is that it's a retelling of the Norse myths. Next, I will finally finish the main 4 books in the Beautiful Creatures series with Beautiful Redemption. After the events of Beautiful Chaos, Ethan is essentially in some kind of ether world, and he doesn't know exactly how to get home, and so Lena and Link and several other characters try to help find him and try to bring him back to the mortal world, while he essentially travels the underworld and learns a lot more about the caster world than he had previously known. And I loved this book a lot. I really thought it did a lot with the relationship with Lena and Ethan and showed just really how much the two loved each other. Then I will be reading The Merciless 2 by Daniel Vega. I read The Merciless a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it. I know a lot of people were really kind of put off by it because it was kind of cheesy, gory, and it really was kind of juvenile in the way that the story was written, but I ate it up because I am not a person that likes gore. I don't like gory movies. I don't like horror movies, but The Merciless was the only book I ever actually read that I really enjoyed that included those things. And so I know The Merciless 2 is supposed to be a continuation of the first book because the first book left on such a cliffhanger that I was so disappointed. And finally, I'm hoping to read this in the end of January, and it is the second book in the Asylum series by Madeline Rue. This is Sanctum. This series essentially follows a group of kids who go to a boarding school for essentially gifted-minded people, and they find out that this boarding school that they are at actually used to be a mental asylum 50 years prior, and in the first book, they find out a lot about the asylum that is very dark and creepy, and in this book, they go back and they're trying to find out more of the secrets that are involved with this asylum. So those are all the books that I'm hoping to read in my month of January. A lot of them, pretty much all of them, are books that I wanted to read last month that I never got to because I had a bit of a reading slump last month. But I am very excited because I don't know of any books from Off Tomes that I'm going to be reviewing. I'm hoping I don't get any because I really would like to be able to take that week break before the biannual Bibliothon. I highly suggest doing it if you get the time because it's going to be so fun. You guys will be able to see all of my skits that I will be preparing over the next couple of weeks to be put up during that week, which will be the only videos you will see that week between January 20th and the 26th. But be excited because they're supposed to be pretty fun. I'm pretty excited for a couple of them because I'm going to get super creative. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.